Other interesting political news, Apple has been served with an antitrust lawsuit by the Department of Justice, which I didn't see this coming. Again, they've had a monopoly or what some would be a traditional monopoly for many years, but with the government relations and just how beloved they are with the consumers and given the political affiliation of most tech companies, I'm surprised we're actually starting to see a modicum of scrutiny to Apple. Now, this comes to us thanks to Jake Perez over at LinkedIn News. They noted that Apple plans to move a file to dismiss the Justice Department's antitrust lawsuit in the next 60 days. The company stated that the case would set a, quote, dangerous precedent. The DOJ suit has cost Apple $113 billion in market value as their stock just, not erased, but it took a dip. Again, they're one of, I think were they the very first $1 trillion publicly traded company? They've hit some huge achievement milestones under the leadership of Tim Cook. They hit the $2 trillion mark, and then I think the $3 trillion mark. Again, not financial advice, but geez Louise, I wish hindsight's always 2020. I wish I invested them decades ago. But I partially digress. They also know that people are selling stock as investors grow weary of the mounting regulatory scrutiny of the tech giant faces on both sides of the Atlantic. In the U.S., the federal government has 16 state and district attorneys general alleged that Apple illegally maintains iPhone dominance by barring rivals from hardware and software features. Which, again, the cliche is build your own phone. Which, there's nothing stopping you except you would need a lot of money, a lot of resources. The only realistic competitor to the phone market right now, which is dominated by Apple and Android being an operating system famously owned by Google, and Android pretty much being the default for everything from Samsung to, well, I don't want to say that's it for Android phones, but that's an overwhelming majority of the market. Do I know anyone who has like a HTC? Maybe. But overwhelming, the default winners of the market are Apple iPhones and Samsung Galaxies. And I think they also call the other thing called the Note. They have a couple names, but it's a Samsung phone. Now, it looks like Apple's also under investigation in Europe regarding the compliance with the Bloc's Digital Markets Act. Finding for flaunting new legislation could be as high as, fines for flaunting the new legislation could be as high as 10% of the global annual revenue and even 20% for repeat offenders. Again, Apple's got some good lawyers. I'm sure they're going to fight that tooth and nail. 10% of your global revenue. Now, granted, Apple could technically absorb that because they are one of the most profitable tech companies ever. They have well above 50% profit margins. Whereas a traditional company, if you're getting a fine for 10% of your revenue, you could be out of business. Because again, that would mean your profit would have to be much greater than 10% to absorb that huge cost. Now, they also know that Apple was fined $2 billion in Europe after Spotify complained that Apple failed to notify users of alternative ways to pay for music streaming. So again, there are a lot of benefits to the Apple ecosystem. You got your Apple Watch, your Apple phone, your Apple laptop, although no longer your Apple car, because after 10 years of research, development, and investing, they decided to pull the plug on that. And it's an EV, so the pun's moderately intended. And it'll be interesting to see, because again, I'm very impressed by the success of Apple, because again, they sell a premium product at a premium price, and they were able to absorb that much market share. I mean, PCs, in terms of personal computing, they're still well beyond Windows, with the exception, I know, marketing companies, like on an anecdotal level, those businesses might have more than 50% of their office using Mac and Apple computer products, because they are great for graphic design, video editing, what have you. But in terms of the global, the big market when it comes to PCs, still Windows overwhelmingly dominates. So it'll be interesting to see how many of these cases do they fight back and they successfully win, and then if they lose, is it going to be a fine, or are they going to be forced to divest parts of the business? There's a lot of things going up against Apple these days, and can't but wonder what's their stock looking like overall. Let's see here. Let's see, Apple stock. Let's see here. So it's currently trading for, again, by the time this video is rendered and uploaded, it might change. We're currently trading for $172.65. Current market cap of $2.67 trillion. It looked like last week it dropped and recovered a little bit towards the end, around 1.75% drop. Now, in the past month, it's dropped 6.35%. 6 months, it's down 1%. Year to date, down -7%. Although, zoom out a little bit, over the past year is up 9.38%. Past 5 years, geez Louise, again, hindsight is always 2020 when it comes to investing, and many things in life actually. But in the past 5 years, the stock is up 261%. And of course, the most amusing thing is look at the whole lifetime of the stock. And granted, it's been split and what have you, I believe. But The lifetime of stock is up 156,836 and 0.27%, which is quite a lot to say the least. It looks like as of 2023, they have 161,000 employees. Revenues in, let's see, the year revenue for 2023 is also $119.58 billion, which is quite a pretty penny. Well, I should clarify, a vintage penny, since modern pennies are 99.99% zinc and basically garbage just being copper plated. Perhaps a sad metaphor for U.S. currency and U.S. fiscal responsibility, lack thereof, with the mounting debt. So let me know in the comments, do you think at the end of the day, will Apple actually face any real backlash? Will they have to divest? Will they have to pay just a big fine? And then, are you a fan of Apple? Do you feel like they have a monopoly? Because again, they're all technically alternatives. You can go to Android, and that's about it. And we've also seen issues where Epic Gaming is suing Apple for not having their stuff in the being able to launch their own app on the platform, which again, Apple built from nothing. They took the huge risks. They paid a lot of money for developers to put up the system, and to maintain that is not cheap as well. Most likely it's being hosted on something like Amazon Web Services or AWS, where again, cost is not negligible. So let me know in the comments. As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in. Again, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you can click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, leave me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback. Let me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.